Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
This has been brought to you by Megger, a company that has been serving the electrical test and measurement industry for over 100 years.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today I'm very pleased to have Robb Braun on my show, who is a human motivator and an accomplished keynote speaker in the realm of personal and professional leadership development. For more than 2 decades, he has passionately delivered presentations to groups and organizations on the topic of personal and leadership success. I think that says everything I need to say about him at the moment. So I want to welcome Robb Braun to the Susan Brender Show, and thanks for being here, Robb.
Susan, my pleasure. Was really looking forward to this.
Well, here it goes. Let's start off with your book, because when somebody writes a book and you read it and you feel the passion in that book to give information and education out to people, you really know that the book is sincere and it's going to do what its aim is to do, which is my question to you. What was the aim of writing this book?
Well, the aim was to help folks that were, on a path that I have been on, and the path being, I knew there was so much more that I was capable of, destined for, that this life was meant to be, and until I broke through some things and got what I call my stories or my beliefs right, it was always going to be a limiting life. So go ahead. You had a question there, Susan.
No. I hear what you're saying, and I want you to continue for a moment because, yes, indeed, I have a question. But continue, if you will.
You got it. So the book Unreasonable, its intention was to help people break out of the passive life, the going along with the flow and the norms, and even going along with, well, my life ain't that bad, or I compare it to others. And it's my belief, and I'll tell you, it reminds me, the first time I heard Anthony Robbins say that we need an unreasonable psychology, that word stuck. And I believe that we need to have an unreasonable attitude, an unreasonable expectation of ourselves if we're going to live a really full life this one time we've got on the planet.
All right, define that for me, the unreasonable life. I mean, it seems like it's clear, but it's not totally clear. So let's give our audience an understanding of what that means, unreasonable
Fair
life.
Enough. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I turned to age 55 this past year, and my whole mantra going into it is I'm going to redefine 55. And so unreasonable is as I look around those that are joining this age group, and if they buy into what 55 is supposed to look like, that means we're supposed to slow down, romance isn't supposed to be quite as exciting, we have less physical energy, and we're supposed to look like we're 55 years old and act like it and be it. And unreasonable is me getting up at 4:30 every morning to make sure I'm to the gym by 5:30, 5:45. And I don't just get on a treadmill. I work with a personal trainer, and he works me out. And afterwards, I feel this accomplished. And it's unreasonable. Even my expectations in my own business, if I were to go after each year what I think is possible for us, we might hit it. And what I've grown to learn to do without seeing it as a failure if I don't hit the mark is to put some mark out there that's kind of nutty. It's like, what makes me think I can double our revenues this year? But I say, let's go for it and let's have some fun. And I mean that sincerely, that it just makes it a let's go for it and really see what we're capable of, not just what's possible. And that's a bit of what unreasonable is.
I see. You mentioned a few things that are really kind of humorous if you think about it, and that's the whole attitude that people have about themselves. You know, they look in the mirror and maybe they see a person who doesn't resemble the person they were when they were young. But on the other hand, it is an attitude that you create for yourself that says, look, I can do everything I want to do regardless of my age. Or maybe that's an unreasonable approach, but on the other hand, I think it's a very positive approach. Now, you said something about you have a lot of stories about yourself, and also your things that happened in your life. I'd like you to tell our audience a little story, because I think that would clarify for them who you are and how you think.
Fair enough. You know, my stories that I started with are probably not unlike a lot of folks. The family that I came from, we grew up. My dad was a mechanic. My mom was a waitress. We didn't have a lot of money, so we began to start, you know, identifying with those who don't have money. So we began creating stories around, you know, working class people, around only those who have money get to go to college, only those who have money, you know, get to buy new cars, stuff like that. And those are and that's just one, you know, and anything else that was about, you know, my value and how I saw myself. I didn't get encouraging words when I was a kid. I just did not. So I took that on, and we all take those on, and we trust our environment to be a reflection of who is that we are, or at least what we're getting reflected back, and we take that on. And so that's what I took on into adulthood. And adulthood meant that I had to work hard, you know, exchange, you know, an hour of work for $1 for work, and that's what working class does. That's noble, and don't expect to have much. And so what happened was, then life experiences started happening, and you know, honestly, I think we're going to stay stuck with our stories unless we're shaken up. And what I will share with you is part of my writing, Unreasonable. Part of its intention was to shake people up without them having to have something in life knock the crap out of them. Right. And to avoid that, and to do something now rather than having your hand forced. And for me, and you said the word earlier, Susan, attitude. Everything was about my attitude, and it was negative. After I had been married for almost 11 years, my first wife, Paula, she passed of cancer. And my attitude was just dark and negative, and I felt victimized by life, and I was angry. And I put on a persona, and I kind of dropped out. I grew my hair long. I became kind of bohemian and said, forget the rules and forget all this. But inside I was in pain, and honestly, I caused myself more pain. And I also was not and I don't mind sharing this, I was not a good model for my son at the time either, who, when he lost his mom, he was 10, and he's looking for me to see how it is that we respond to this loss and all that. And, you know, and I thought I was doing good, but in hindsight, there was so much that he wasn't getting from me because of the stories that I was creating about being this, you know, this husband who was cheated and robbed of life, and it was just all negative, and it was all attitude. It was all attitude. And then Susan, for me, the defining story for me is on a Sunday morning, getting a phone call and hearing the person on the other end says, I've got something difficult to share with you about your son. Yes. And my son Chase, at the time, was 19 years old. And I knew what the call was about, and I even told the person, give me a minute. And I was bracing myself. I was getting ready. And what they ultimately said was that he had been shot and killed. Oh. And Susan, what this did was it woke me up to how I'd been living my life. And I even that day, literally that Sunday, that afternoon, I made two decisions. And one was I wasn't going to be angry at God because this one would last forever. So I was just going to trust somehow. And the second one was that I was going to stop playing it small, and I was not going to let my loss of him be my reason for playing it small and settling for life and even having a higher dose of anger and negativity and all that. That was not going to be how I was going to remember him. And that was the shift. That was the shift. Now, I didn't necessarily catch my breath that moment, but that was the beginning of me starting to abandon limiting beliefs and abandon victimhood and abandon all that crap that was never going to serve me or anyone else.
Yeah. An interesting thing is the word victim, because people often see themselves as victims, and if you really look around and you see what's going on around the world, I mean, I'm projecting all of these negative thoughts that people have because of the reality of their life. There are people who are suffering, losing people in war and being absolutely wiped out of money. That's, the stories go on and on about people who do suffer a lot, and some of them are able to just take a look at their lives and say, well, here for the grace of God, and then also look at their situation, comparing it to other people. And if they do that, they see that life is not easy. They understand that. Now, you've experienced some of the most horrendous things in life, and yet you were able to bounce back. So give us a clue. I mean, because you talked about negativity, and you talked about the fact that you went all the way to the bottom. You just woke up one day and horrible things happened, and you were at the bottom of the barrel. So with regard to bouncing back, how does one do that when they lose a son, they lose a wife, they may people in their families in the military lose their husbands, their wives, people of that nature. So explain to my audience what it is that gave you the strength and the power to just live life to the fullest.
Well, one thing I want to bring in here is that even people who have lost their business or lost a spouse to divorce or lost their home, loss is loss, and we can't compare mine's bigger than yours. There's a dream loss, there's an idea of what things were going to be lost, so that's all very, very real. I don't want to sound simplistic here, but I will share with you that I believe that decision that I made that day was really the it. One of the things I say when I'm speaking for audiences or I go into companies, I say, I'm no big deal. I got nothing on any of you. I simply decide every single day that I'm going to live this day to its fullest, period. I decide my attitude is going to be positive. And it's not looking through rose-colored glasses. It's no matter what comes my way. In fact, I have a little mantra. I've got it stenciled on my coffee cup. It says, I got this. And what it means to me is I don't care what comes at me. I got this. Yeah. If I'm having a conversation with a potential client, they go, yeah, Rob, let's move forward. I go, great, man, we got this thing. If they bail out after a week and they say, hey, we've decided to put our funds elsewhere, thank you anyway, it's maybe sometime in the future. I feel the sting for a moment, and then I go, I got this. This ain't no thing. Oh. And it's a very, very real thing. It's a decision. When I go to work out in the morning, I don't always have a victory. Sometimes I fail. Sometimes he pushes me on something. I'm going, man, it wiped me out today. And then I just say, I still got this. This is no big deal. And so it is so much about a decision to refuse to be victimized by what's going on. I know people today that still 10 years after that economic downturn back in 2002, 2007, 2008, they're still blaming their lives on the economy. Wow. And they're still victimized by the crap going on around them rather than taking some responsibility for their response to what's going on out there. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I don't feel stuff. I feel it. I just don't let myself feel it for 3 years anymore. And if it's bigger stuff, we put it in perspective, we allow ourselves to grieve, but we don't place ourselves in that victimhood.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would say easier said than done, but I think that it's really important that you share that with your audience. Now, let me ask you something. If you were talking to different kinds of audiences, each one like a young audience, say high school kids, college kids, and then you were talking to, say, octogenarians, would your talk be different to the different groups?
Well, I would dress differently for each group to make sure that they look at me and go, all right,
Not like Elvis, I hope.
Not like Elvis.
Okay.
Essentially, it all does come down to the decision that we make that day. And Susan, I know this sounds so obvious, but we've only got this one life. This is it, and it's limited. And that's one of the questions I almost always ask my audience. I go, how much time you got left? Mm-hmm. And they kind of look at me like, well, I don't know. I go, that's right. And I hold up my forefinger and my thumb, and my pointer finger, and I go, like we're kind of measuring 3 inches. I go, you got this much.
Right.
I don't know if that's 3 days or 3 decades, but you got this much. So what are you going to do with it? So when I am talking to a younger audience, I help them to recognize where they're allowing their days, their lives to be dictated by how people see them, or what shirt they wore today, or what brand or logo, or what music they listen to, or how many likes they got on their Facebook page, or whatever that is, that somehow they're allowing their value to be dictated by something outside of them, rather than deciding for themselves when they look in the mirror going, you got this. And so the message about how we're going to live our day really is that. I have another mantra that I live by that I enjoy, and it's I do only what I feel inspired to do and nothing else. And it's not a statement of lack of responsibility. It's I feel it or I don't, and I do it because I feel inspired, not because anyone or anything outside of me has an expectation that this is what I ought to be doing.
Yeah.
And by the way, and part of the struggle with that is it puts responsibility on me. And I don't know about you, but I love shirking responsibility and like having it be on somebody else and not me. But at the end of the day, that really is it. I mean, it's on us. So my day is my responsibility. How it goes, my responsibility. So whether younger or older, I think the message is still pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. But Rob, don't you think that in this country in particular, that people feel that they're entitled, and often the family, say we're talking about a young person and their parents and how they treat them, they become enablers in many ways because they feel that in this society, you're entitled to have a perfect life, to be very successful in business, to make money, power. That seems to be the way things are. And I wonder how you respond to that because, again, if you look around you, you read all the articles in the newspapers and in magazines, Rob, we deal with situations that make us feel that we're entitled to having so many things in our lives, money, that we have power, that we can start different kinds of entrepreneurial pursuits, and various other things. And our families, if you look at around in society, particularly in this country, people feel that they're entitled.
Privilege kind of goes along with certain groups of people that have access to more resources than other groups of people. Part of that is that, here's what's really interesting. There is not a successful businessman or woman I have ever encountered that did not include on how they got to where they are that didn't say it took hard frickin' work.
Yeah.
Everyone will say the same thing. Susan, I know you and your success, you've worked hard to get where you are, that nothing just showed up one day. And that's a lesson that we're not teaching our young people. And part of what I say is it's not their fault.
Right.
Part of what it is you're right, we're in a culture where you think that all you have to do is, be able to sing a song or be able to play an instrument or be able to look pretty and things will come your way. And I mean, we see what happens in the fashion industry. We see what happens in the entertainment industry. There's this idea that somehow that we can get what they've got just by having the right parents, the right circumstance, whatever the heck that is. And, part, I think, also what contributes to that, especially folks that have not been in, working class families that, with all the separations and the divorces and then the parents trying to compete and they're trying to be the kids' friends and there isn't that stability and the focus on, teaching our young people not to be like us, but to take responsibility for their lives and knowing that if you want something, damn it, you got to hustle for it. You're going to have to work for it, and it isn't going to come. So we've got to do a better job as our society and as families. We've got to do a better job of better preparing. Now, I'm still a big believer that if you dream hard enough and you have dreams, that power of intention, who knows who the right people and the right circumstances might show up. But I still got to do the work, and I still have to show up, and I still have to practice, and I still have to be so determined. I still have to outwork everybody else. All that's got to happen. And good things can happen that we didn't expect, but we got to be in the game, and we got to be working.
Yeah, I'm going to share this with you and my audience. My son is involved in broadcasting, and I mention and I talk about my son's hard work. Very hard work. But I love the word that you used a moment ago, which is the word intention. Because if you have an intention, if you have a passion for something and you pursue it, of course you have to give it a certain amount of time. And you also have to be honest with yourself and say when to give up. I mean, there are times where you just pursue something and pursue it, and it doesn't come to fruition. But the reality is that that's not a failure. Don't you agree? That's more like, okay, I've tried. I wanted to do this particular thing, but it's just not in the cards for me. So if you were to, again, have a discussion with an audience, how would you approach that point that there is, you have to kind of set 5 years, perhaps 5 years from now, if I don't do what I hoped to accomplish, then start again. It's not unreasonable to say that. Isn't that true?
I'm with you, and here's what I'm also going to add to that. It's impossible that there wasn't good, regular growth and awareness and heightened understandings along the way. With my business and my career, I had an idea where I was going with it. So I put myself into it, and I put long hours and showed up, and my wife would even say, anytime anyone asks you if you can speak, it's always yes. Yes, yes, yes. And sometimes all I can do is feed you lunch that day. So it's like, great, I'm there. And I will say that without exception, there was never, ever a speaking engagement that I spoke at, whether I was paid $5,000 or lunch, that I didn't make at least one good, solid connection that turned into something else. But the point I want to make with what you're sharing there, let's say that I had a particular direction, and somehow it's not working, but some other things are happening along the way. So what happens is it's not that the whole thing turns out to be a failure. I just course correct that maybe this wasn't it, that maybe I set out to be a speaker, but it turns out that where my real connection, maybe it is with young people. And I thought I was going to be in corporations, but every time I got into this corporate entity, the only people I really connected with was the younger generation. And I'm finding, man, I got some juice right there. There's something there. So maybe I won't end up being this executive coach, all that. Maybe I will end up being someone who sets trends and ends up being a movement leader for our younger generation. And so I allow myself to go, okay, maybe that's not it, but here's what I've discovered about myself, and there has been growth, and so I move with that. And, wherever that does come, and you're right, we have to pay attention to when, the world's telling me, no, this is not the way for you, and it's okay. That's good to know. It's good to know, and that way I get to take a step back and reevaluate that. And what I know is when intentions are right, when I'm clear that I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, things happen. People show up. People recognize. I mean, I've had the most incredible circumstances, and people make their way into my life, not because I'm special and not because I willed it, because I showed up and someone went, that cat believes in himself and what he's doing. There's something there.
That's right. And it's sort of like the power to finish something on a single charge, you know. You get this like charge in yourself, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm not going to stop at this. You know, I had that experience the other day. You know, Rob, it was so interesting. It's like something in my head and something in my desire to accomplish a certain task gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to finish on a single charge. I'm going to do it. I'm going to accomplish something. And if it doesn't work, so be it. That was my expression to myself. So be it. Why should people buy your book? Who is it directed to? What's in it that would benefit our audience to know? What I don't want to sound is negative. I just want you to answer the question because I think that it would satisfy the idea that there is a purpose to it.
Yeah, no, that's a legitimate question. Why would anybody want your book? That's a great question. The reason people will want to buy the book is they know somewhere inside them the honest truth, and that is that on some level they have played their life safe. They know they've not gone for it. They know they've settled either in their marriage, they've settled with their physical health, they've settled with their spiritual connection, they've settled with their work and career. They have settled. They've gone along with. They say, it's not that bad. It could have been worse. They know there's something missing. And there's a part of them that's hungry for what life has really got to deliver. And not that it's going to be from the outside, but it'll be from the inside. And what I do is I actually take people through, it's almost like a workshop where you can't read chapter 2 until you've completed the tasks in chapter 1. And we begin with stories. We begin with limiting beliefs. We begin with what you tell yourself, something as simple as when you go to the supermarket and you've got a favorite bread that you like, but the first thing you do is you look at the price of the bread and you go, damn. And then you look a couple breads over and you see that one's half off. It's not quite your favorite. But you suddenly, because of your story or belief around there being not enough money if I get what I really want, and then I settle on the other loaf of bread. Yeah. And there's a part of me that knows that I gave in to a belief that there's not enough. And Susan, I've had times in my life when I didn't have any damn money. So I know what it's like to have that kind of attitude and that kind of fear and that kind of limiting belief. Right. So people, and they know it. So when they're staying in a marriage that's hurting them, when they're staying at a job that is sucking the life out of them, when they're doing for their family what their family expects them to do, but there's no joy in life and they know there's something more, that's why they would want to go pick up this book. Because I'm going to press them to reconsider their life.
Well, I'm speaking to Robb Braun, who is an author, who is a speaker, who has experienced many things in life. And Robb, if people want to buy your book, what do they have to do? And is it something that they could get very quickly? And if they want to find out or speak to you, how do they do that as well?
Very good. So here's what I'm going to do something kind of cool because I have power over the pricing of my book. You can go to Amazon. Go to Amazon. The book is Unreasonable, and then the tag is An Extraordinary Life Beyond Reason. Okay? So they can go there. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop the price on the book. I'm going to bring it down. And what date are we at, the 4th right now?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to do this until the 15th of this month. I'm just going to bring it down so they can go there. Because more important is I want people to have the book in their hands. I don't want them not to have it. If something resonates, if something clicks for them. So I will keep that price down until the 15th, and they'll be able to get access to it. If they want to connect with me, they can go to my website, robbraun.com, and it's ROBBBRAUN.com. And on there, they can send me an email. They can even connect with me. That gets on my list is called the Robbisms. They get a weekly, here's how to get on with life. And just a weekly little pick me up, an attitude adjustment, whatever that is. And that's a real easy way to connect. They won't get bombarded by emails, but they'll get that weekly little dose of let's get going and change your attitude. So those are a couple ways right there.
Well, that's terrific. So today my guest has been Robb Braun, who is a speaker, an author, and a very, very inspirational man. And I think it would be very important for our audience to listen to this particular program because Robb has a lot of advice to give you, and he's also offering you a very, very good deal on his book, which I think is necessary for everyone to read, whether you're young, whether you're old, it doesn't matter. It's going to influence you in ways that you can't even describe. So thank you, Robb Braun, for being on the Susan Brender Show. It was a pleasure.
Susan, my pleasure as well. Thank you, and wishing you and your audience terrific success moving forward. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.